Right, time to have a sort through of all of the components that came out of the chassis, the small components and bits and pieces that I want to use. And the first thing I want to do is to check the large ceramic resistors that sit inside the chassis. There's two of them on tag strip. I'll move that out of the way. You can see them there. Zoom you in. So there's a huge 30k 20 watt resistor. This is the one that sat at the far left hand side of the chassis by the output transformer, and it's the one that also has the two splitter resistors for the reservoir caps, the 200Ks. Now they're going to get replaced anyway, but we need to make sure that this resistor is good. So whether we can reuse it again or whether we need to find a replacement. So it is a 10% resistor. 10%. So let's get this thing measured and find out where we need to be. So 30,000 ohms. And it's 10%, so as long as it's within that 10% range. So if we just say plus 10%, easy enough to do. It can be up to 33k, and therefore it can be as low as 27k. And as long as it's within that range, it can be in spec. So can we see the meter? Put it on ohms. $53.6k. Okay, well that's well out of tolerance. 53.7. So that's no good. So I'm going to have to find a 30k 20 watt resistor. On the schematic, it is this one here. So we've got the output from the rectifier diodes. Got our reservoir caps here, the 220 microfarad caps that are split by those 100k resistors. Got the standby switch here. Then we've got the feed up to the output transformer. Okay. We've also got this other resistor here, this 2.7k 10 watt resistor, which is this one here. So we'll look at that one in a second. So we've got all of our high voltage for the preamp, for the phase inverter and the preamp comes through that 2k7 10 watt resistor. We've got a 20 microfarad filter cap there, and then you've got this dropper resistor to ground, this 30k 20 watt resistor, and we know that that one is now out of spec and needs to be replaced. What about the 2k7 10 watter? Here it is. So it's at 2,700 ohms. Add 10% because it's a 10% resistor as well. Means it can be 2.97k on one way, and minus 10%, 2.43k. What do we think it's going to be? Can we still see the meter? Yes, we can. .51. So it's within tolerance at the lower end of the scale. Do I want to use that? I prefer it to be more accurate because I want my voltages inside to be more accurate than that. So I'm tempted to see if we can get a replacement for that one as well. The other thing that I want to check is the bias pot. Now the amp originally used a bias balance circuit, and I'm converting this to a standard bias supply, but I can still use the 10k pot rather than replacing it, and if it's still good, then I am going to use it. That is going to be the plan. So get that resistor out of the way, put that back in the pot, and all I need to do is measure across the outside terminals, and we're looking for 10k. You see that? Yeah. What do we have? 12k. Oh dear. So we think we might need another bias pot. Measure it again. Let's put the wiper into the middle of its rotation. There. Come in and measure that again, see what we get. Same measurement, 12k. So that, unfortunately, is out of tolerance, out of spec, so it is going to need to be replaced. That's a shame, isn't it? Because I would have liked to have used it. Now, is that going to be an issue with a 12k pot instead of a 10k pot? Probably not, but an amplifier is only as good as its worst component, so and if it's out of spec, out of tolerance, we're not going to use it. Shall we play a game and say, guess who messed up? Was it me or was it me? Answers on a postcard. Yes, I messed up. Do you remember how I said I was going to use the Bolgan style IEC to drill out this hole here to fit? Well, I was just on complete autopilot. I don't know why I forgot, but I went and enlarged the voltage selector hole for one of those styles instead. I'm so annoyed with myself. But anyway, it's not the end of the world because, you know, I'll quite happily use that, but I really wanted it there. I really wanted that style there. I was just in a world of my own, but it's done now. Never mind. Moving on. Okay, so I'm now starting to think about doing the final chassis prep before assembly, because assembly really is the next stage of this, where I start to put things back into the chassis. It is going to have one more final clean, as I've mentioned before, but we know we've drilled the holes, or we're using the holes for the standoffs for the main board, but I still need to do double check that one there. Still need to do the sorry, I went blank there. The filter board on the back side of the chassis. Now, originally it used this hole, but I'm using that for this board. Did it use that one? Or am I talking nonsense? No, it used these two here, didn't it? It used these two holes here, which I'm not going to use on this board. Need to double check which way around it's going to go as well. So I need to drill some mounts for this board as well. Also, while I'm at it, with that in place, lined up with this in place, and I seem to remember it's going to go that way, but I might be wrong. That way. I'll double check. Do you remember I said we're going to have the bias pot? Rather than having it on the back panel, we're going to have it inside of the chassis, and I want it to go roughly here, like that. Okay. I'm not going to use this one. I've got a normal one on order that isn't centre tap like that. A proper Fender one though, or Fender branded one. But it's going to go roughly there, in whatever orientation works best. So I need to check that that can fit there. So I need to mount two pots in here, because it's going to go in between the master control and the bass control for this channel. Or is that the presence control? Volume, no, there, yeah, bass pot. So I just need to check clearance there. Then I can mark where this is going to be. This is going to fit, and drill out my hole there. So that's really what I've got to do, is get my standoffs all checked and done for this, and drill my hole for my bias pot. The other thing I should do, while I'm thinking about it, is there's no point in having a bias pot in a place if you can't actually get to it with a screwdriver. So as long as I can get in there and turn that, that's fine. So we'll have to be roughly there. So I need to get some rough standoffs in for this one to get the height right. Same with these, but I can't do that until I've done this one first. So that's going to be the first step, is deciding roughly where I want this to go, and I think it's going to be that way. I'm going to double check and I'm going to come back to you. Yep, I was right, so it's going to go this way around with the bias caps on the preamp ends of the chassis and the big filter caps on the transformer end of the chassis. So it's going to go there, and I think these two holes here should line up with these two. That one's roughly in the right place. That one's roughly in the right place there. I quite like that. So we just need to decide roughly where that's going to be. And what I'm going to use two standoffs for this, 2 points of support. And I'm going to put one here between those two caps. And I'm going to put one here. I would put it here, but we've got positive voltage there, so I'm going to put it there, and that should be enough just to stabilize it. So I'm going to go drill some 3.2mm holes in that board, in those two places. This one's going to be far enough. Well, even though this is the positive end of the caps, it's because they're bias caps, they're in reverse. So this is actually ground. Positive ground for bias. This is the negative side which connects into the circuit, so this side is actually okay. So we're going to go there and there, then I can drill those, transfer those holes to the chassis, drill the chassis out, put my standoffs in. Okay, this way around. Done it again, look. Just get some masking tape. Remember, I did say we're going to move into some longer format stuff for this build now, so none of those quick videos when I get into the nitty gritty of it. So if we have that there, does that look square from above? What do we think? Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do that one first. Then what I can do is anchor it in place on that point and rotate it around until I get it perfectly square with the edge of the chassis. I think that's the best way to do it. Right, I'm just going to go drill that out on the bench press. Okay, you see how that rotates around now? So now what I've got to do is decide how, or measure, I should say, the distance from the edge of the chassis to the board. So I'm going to use the back edge here actually as my datum. So if we say it's square there, lock that in place. Oh, there's still play in the mount, look. Try that one again. There we go. That's better. Out there, isn't it? That looks square to me. What about the other side? Yep, Perfect. That worked quite well. Does it look square on camera? Probably not. Actually, yeah, it does. Mark that hole. And go and drill that. Ha! Perfect. Look at that. Quite happy with the way that's turned out. One more thing to do is I need to get the doghouse, which I've stored elsewhere. One, two, three, four. We're going to have to remove the internal foam, or at least trim it back a bit for the larger caps. There we go. Excellent. It's not the final check though, is it? Because this is going to be raised slightly on standoffs. So let's put the standoffs in from the other side. Line it all up. Check the clearance on the vertical side of it. Just need to deburr those holes. And for that we need a hole deburrer. Which one was it? This one? And that one. Any others that need doing? Nope. Maybe just on this side, just to tidy it up. Okay, standoff. Where's the other one gone? Here it is. Not quite. There we go. Look at that. Perfect fit. Sorted. Okay, so now that's done. Happy with that. I'm going to take these off and Loctite them. The other one was, of course, was DT. I'll do that now. Take those off while I'm thinking about it. is this board does go this way. The way I remember that is the diode goes towards the preamp side. So we'll get those on standoffs 2. Am I running out of standoffs? I think I am. Like that. Right, so I need to get the 2 pots in there. What have I done with them? What did I do with my pots? Well, are there any other considerations that I need to make? Yes, there are. There's the main board as well. So I'll quickly get that in. One, and I said this hole, didn't I? What else? What else? Tell you what I'll do, just to hold that board steady. Okay, that's those, and I need the big old resistor, this one. The one that sits on the tag strip there. Does it go that way or that way? Must go this way. We'll just lock that in with one of these for the time being. So this is just the mock-up stage. Okay. Right, we're getting somewhere now. Yeah, tell you what we could do, rather than using the old bias pot with that lug, if I use the hum balance pot, because it is the same size, the hum balance is still going on the rear panel. I can at least work out what kind of spacing I want. Need the layout. Is the layout on my desk or is it on here? The schematic, sorry, not the layout. So we're going to go from the diode here off to the filter stack. Zoom you out of it. Got the wires that run from the diode from here. It comes. Does it either come this way or does it come this way? It will come to the. Anyway, but then it's going to come back through up to where my pot's going to be. Okay. And I think, oh, where's it gone? Here it is. It's going to come, it doesn't need to be that way, it needs to be this way. So about there, I reckon. So if I say that's, if I find the halfway point between these two, looks about there, doesn't it? Roughly. And is that the best place for it? Would it not go better there? I need to, what comes through these holes, sorry. Be easier if I could mount it there, wouldn't it? Here's the layout. Okay, so the diode X, which then comes to down and through that hole there, right, to the board, okay. But it then comes out back through that hole, which is not going to do. Well, actually, is there a reason why I couldn't just use one of those holes rather than having it on the back panel coming there? If it's coming back from, and then I can just run the wire back over. Do I like that? Is that the best way to do it? What do you think? So before it come through this hole here, can you see what I'm showing you? It comes through this hole here, this one here, up to the pot on the back, and then over to your output valves. What's stopping me, because this hole is unused, that one there, as far as this diagram goes. I need to look back at my old pictures. Hold on. Right, yeah, so on the photos I took of the original amp, nothing came through that hole. Just an empty hole that had a grommet in. So let's just mount our pot there. Why wouldn't we just do that? The bias wire's coming through here, so it can come straight to that point, can't it? Why would I do it any other way? Why would I do it any other way? Well, because it then minimises the return wire length back there. No, I'm going to use that hole. Sod it, I'm going to use that hole. Can always change it in the future. Means I haven't got to drill the chassis anymore. I mean, look how bad it was. Right, that's what we're doing. Decision made. We're just going to mount it in that hole. And then have the flying one over. Why not? Why not? Right, I'm just going to give it a quick final wipe down, then I am going to start assembly on this. Now, I remember in another video, I said it was clean and I wiped it and it still came out dirty, but I want to show you something. So if I grab a brand new chassis that I use for building amps, give it a spray of IPA, get some kitchen roll, and wipe that chassis. This is a brand new chassis that's clean. Comes up dirty, right? That's normal. Alright? That's just the normal grossness of chassis. That's why you're constantly cleaning them, because you want to keep them in good condition. So if a new chassis is dirty, what do we think an old chassis is going to be like? Sorry, if a clean chassis comes up dirty, and so will this one. Alright? So it is clean. Or clean enough for an amp build. However, the only bit I did want to do was have a good go at cleaning up the where the serial number is, because that does look a bit gross. I'm running out of kitchen roll. Look. I'll have to buy some tonight. Not as dirty as the inside of the chassis was, or clean. The point I'm trying to make is that you could be cleaning these things for hours, even brand new chassis, and they'll still come up slightly dirty, if that makes sense. Right, okay. I'm just going to go over the rest of the chassis, just give it one final wipe down. Then, as I do with any amp build, start with the standoffs, then valve sockets, then transformers.